Changes for charities that help people on their journey to the U.S.
What we see more now are folks coming from Cuba and Venezuela.
The potential ripple effect caused by a spike in violence in southern Mexico.
This is something that we have never seen before in Mexico.
Plus, how the federal government investigates corruption along the border.
And I see a lot of similarities between espionage cases and corruption cases.
Hello and welcome to Arizona 360. I'm Lorraine Rivera. Thank you for joining us. Our continuing coverage of border-related issues brings us to Nogales this week. As the year winds down, so have the number of people detained at the southern border since that number peaked in April. For insight into the recent shifts in immigration, we traveled to Nogales, Sonora, and visited the Kino Border Initiative, a facility that aids migrants and deportees. For more than a decade, the Kino Border Initiative has served hundreds of people each day out of a small aid center just south of the Mariposa port of entry. Men, women, and children line up for breakfast and dinner. They also have access to basic first aid. During Arizona 360's last visit in late 2018, volunteers and staff were mostly helping families from Central America. Communications Director Katie Sherrar described how things have changed since.
We see a lot fewer Central Americans now. Families from southern Mexico are definitely still arriving, particularly from the state of Guerrero. But what we see more now are folks coming from Cuba and Venezuela. There are certainly still families seeking asylum, and they're waiting here at the port of entry for about somewhere between 2 and 3 months, I would say. And then also there's a consistent presence of people who have been deported from the interior of the U.S. or after crossing through between ports of entry.
The families who are coming from Cuba and Venezuela, what do you know about their journey to Nogales?
I think it's a pretty long journey. For the Cubans in particular, a lot of them were at other ports of entry prior to coming here. And because they're often targets for extortion and other ports of entry are seen as a little bit more dangerous, like Matamoros or Juarez, they see Nogales as a safer place to come. So many left Cuba, came up through Nicaragua, which gives them visas, and then crossed up and through Central America, Mexico, stayed for a time in Reynosa or Matamoros or Juarez, and then because of difficult experiences there, came over to Nogales, where they put themselves on the list again and just feel a little bit safer overall.
For the families that are seeking asylum and staying in this region for about 2 to 3 months, what is their stay like?
I think it's just like living in limbo. There's no particular daily routine. The kids in particular, I think, struggle a lot because they don't have the ability to go to school. Their lives are a little bit upended. They're just here without much knowledge of when they're going to be able to present at the port of entry, what's going to happen to them after that.
This week, Customs and Border Protection released numbers for fiscal year 19. The agency reported a nearly 230% increase in family units apprehended in its Tucson sector, which includes Pima, Santa Cruz, and Cochise counties. But the agency also noted a drop-off in immigration that began in May, due in part to greater cooperation with the Mexican government and new agreements with Central American countries. Your work is in human rights. What is it like knowing that there are so many uncertainties when these families come in and out of your doors?
I think what's challenging for me is just how quickly policies change from on our side of the border in the U.S. And it becomes very hard to keep track of what a current policy is going to be and to then advise the people who are here, because it is like a matter of oftentimes life and death for them to know what's going to happen. And it just seems that things, A, change so rapidly that it's hard for me to keep on top of, and then B, that it is applied a little bit arbitrarily from one agent to another, one port of entry to another, and so it's very difficult to predict. So it almost seems like a kind of intentional chaos for everyone involved.
Kino Border Initiative has been in this region for about 10 years now. How has this been sustainable?
I mean, we just have this extraordinary network of volunteers and supporters. I mean, even here today, we have people from Montana, New York, Oregon, here in Nogales, Sonora. I mean, there's just like a tremendous community of people who want to come and volunteer their time.
Volunteers here today include Paul Jaquay from Montana, who vacations in southern Arizona with his wife. They first came to Kino Border Initiative last November and returned in February.
I like the experience. And for my wife, Marianne, and I, we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. We're getting to be kind of snowbirds and coming down to where it's warm. We're not working full time, so we get to go out and enjoy things in the area. And then get to help people out,
As a retired physician's assistant, Jaquay also helps treat people experiencing illness.
Last February, because it was so cold, a really bad head cold, upper respiratory infection went around. Also, there was a lot of chicken pox. Mostly for what I'm seeing here, all I need to do is find the right box that's got the right medicine. If there's something surgical, of course, it can't be done.
As people clear their plates, volunteers are quick to wash up and set the tables for the next group waiting outside. Their goal is to serve everyone before sunset, so those staying at the nearest shelter a few miles away don't have to walk back in the dark. Kino Border Initiative expects that will change soon. Early next year, it plans to open a new migrant outreach center that will have enough space to shelter 130 people overnight.
You know, we'll be here as long as we need to be, and one foot in front of the other. Yeah, I mean, there's joy alongside the despair, you know, and I think that's true of life, and I think that's true of this work.
This week, investigators in Mexico are in the early stages of identifying dozens of human remains discovered in a mass grave outside of Rocky Point, a popular tourist destination for Arizonans. The findings have made headlines across Mexico and Arizona. KJZZ Radio's Murphy Woodhouse has followed the developments and shared with us his reporting via Skype from Hermosillo, Sonora.
42 bodies have been confirmed found, and all but 2 of those bodies were fully skeletonized. Almost all of them were also likely male, according to state authorities, and I think it is worth pointing out that figure of 42 is larger than the 38 found outside of Ciudad Obregón earlier this year. And at the time, a high-ranking law enforcement official with the state attorney's office told me that was at that time the largest such discovery he had any knowledge of. So this has now exceeded that.
What can you tell me about the group that's doing the searching?
So this specific group, the Madres Buscadores de Sonora, or the Searching Mothers of Sonora, it's one of quite a number of similar groups that have sprung up in the state in recent years. They are largely composed of people who have missing loved ones. In the case of Cece Patricia Flores, who's the leader of that particular group, she is looking for her 2 sons. And she's actually from Hermosillo, but had gone to Puerto Peñasco, or Rocky Point, as it's known in Arizona, to set up sort of a satellite or affiliate group there to get searching going in that area. And I think it's also important to point out that many group leaders are women, and many members are women, and these are often women-led. And who they're searching for are the over 2,000 people in Sonora who are missing officially, according to federal data, as of late 2018, and that figure for the whole country of Mexico is over 40,000.
Rocky Point is a tourism hotspot for many people, especially from the state of Arizona. How does the Mexican government handle the optics of things? I mean, this can't paint a positive picture for that community.
Yeah, this is terrible news for Rocky Point, which, as you rightly point out, is extremely dependent on tourism, especially from folks from Arizona and elsewhere in the United States. I guess it is probably worth pointing out, and I don't mean to undercut the gravity of the discovery, but given that all but 2 were fully skeletonized, we actually cannot say how long ago these crimes occurred, what the circumstances were. So it's very difficult to use this to say anything specifically about whether violent crime is increasing or decreasing or anything like that in Rocky Point. I think it's further worth pointing out that according to federal data, for Rocky Point is actually one of the less violent major cities in Sonora. But at the same time, you can certainly understand or appreciate why someone might read about this and maybe have some second thoughts about their trip to Rocky Point.
As you continue to collect information, what's next in the investigative stage, but also the closure for these families? Yeah,
so state authorities will be heading up the identification effort, and they will be assisted by a forensic anthropologist that's been sent by the federal government, specifically the National Searching Commission. And authorities had asked those with missing people in and around Puerto Peñasco to make, an official report of the missing person, but then also to provide a DNA sample to further aid the identification. And then I'm glad you brought that up regarding kind of what's what this all means for the families tied to these bodies. So while this is very bad news for Rocky Point and very sad news generally, there could in fact be some relief for a great many people. And we're talking about 42 people, all of whom had close friends and family.
So very sad for all these families involved, Murphy, and it wasn't so long ago that Juarez was in the spotlight. How does the Mexican government treat this case, given that it is getting a reputation for a dangerous and violent place, given the sheer number of missing and murdered people in that country?
The picture being broadcast to the greater world of Mexico is certainly one of some very challenging security situations. But at the same time, I do think that a lot of the nuance of the situation is lost in that. And in the case of Rocky Point specifically, again, while this is an extraordinarily large and tragic event, the actual rates of murder in that community, actually compared to the rest of Sonora, is relatively low. And again, there are other parts of Sonora that are experiencing much higher levels of violence and much more theatrical and violence than Puerto Peñasco.
More than 600 miles from here, in the southern Mexican city of Culiacan, a violent showdown a few weeks ago could have ramifications for the entire country after federal law enforcement arrested the son of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. The Sinaloa cartel staged a deadly counterattack for his release that included blocking routes to the city and taking the families of soldiers hostage. As for its implications, we learn more from Javier Osorio, an expert in cartel violence at the University of Arizona School of Government and Public Policy.
This is something that we have never seen before in Mexico, this large flexing muscle of an organized criminal group at this scale. We're talking about probably 300 heavily armed hitmen operated in a very coordinated fashion. And also something very important, they were very disciplined. They were not just conducting crazy violence. They had a strategy behind that.
This week, Mexico's federal government offered a timeline of last month's clashes and released video recorded by soldiers that shows when they arrested El Chapo's son at his home. The Associated Press reports that soldiers forced him to get his brother on the phone and call off the attack. Instead, his brother refuses. Another video shows a wounded soldier in the back of a truck as gunfire sounds off all around his group. In the last month, throughout 3 Mexican states, dozens have died, including civilians, nearly 15 police officers, and a National Guard soldier.
The government decided not to continue with the arrest and actually released the son of the Chapo Guzman. The criminal organizations, there were recordings of audio in radio conversations that they were given instructions to stop shooting, to withdraw. So that speaks of a very large organized group capable of inflicting a lot of harm, not only to civilians, but also to making the government bend the knee.
For many of us on the outside looking in, we thought Chapo Guzman was the most violent tyrant in Mexico. Is it possible that his son and whoever succeeds this cartel is even worse?
The level of violence that we saw this time was something of notice this time, because by the size of the deployment, by the weaponry that they showed, and the most important innovation is not only the scale, but taking civilians as a bargaining chip with the government. That is something new, potentially very, very violent and dangerous for society. Right now, society suffers a lot of violence from criminals, pretty much by extortion or kidnapping, which are very targeted, individualized actions. This is not widespread and indiscriminate violence against civilians. And this is something that now has the potential of becoming a new tactic, not only for this cartel, but there are many other cartels in the country. And if they realize that putting civilians as human shields is a successful strategy to make the government back down, there's a possibility that these other criminal groups will start using this tactic.
You're a security analyst. I mean, you look at this from a big picture standpoint. We often hear that if you're not involved in these types of illicit activities, you should be safe, you shouldn't have any problems. But you also just described that these operations are becoming more bold and brazen. That means the civilian population is at an increased risk. Is that correct?
Absolutely. The consequence of the government cracking down on international trade of drugs, basically that hurts the economic benefits from international or transnational criminal organizations. But they still remain with a lot of capacity for enforcement, for violence. And if their income from international trade goes down, they're going to use that violence to put their money up. And they do that by kidnapping and extortion and killing people. Increasingly in a more indiscriminate way. Is not only the super wealthy businessman or the elites, now they go pretty much after anyone.
Much of the recent violence has occurred in the southern states of Mexico. What are the chances of it escalating north toward the Arizona border, and what does this mean for us here in the United States?
Well, violence at the border has always been very high. The North and the South are not very different. They just change their seasons and they have peaks and valleys of violence. So most likely violence are still is going to be up. Last month was historically the most violent month in the record of modern Mexican history. And unfortunately, I don't think things will change for good. What we might see in our borders is, unfortunately, probably since violence might become a lot more indiscriminate, targeting civilians, we might see civilians being pushed out of their communities, fleeing violence, and we might actually see more people coming here to the U.S. border trying to seek asylum for protection.
The weaponry that you described that's been used in many of these attacks, where is it coming from, given that you can't even own a handgun in Mexico?
Yeah, Mexico has very restrictive laws for guns, so all these guns are acquired in illicit networks. The vast majority of all these guns, and we're talking very heavy weaponry, come from the U.S. These are not just .22 caliber pistols, right? We're talking about assault rifles, grenade launchers, military-grade machine guns that you put on top of tanks or Humvees. This is the kind of weaponry that criminal organizations use against the government and against also other cartels. That is a very strong point that the Mexican authorities haven't been able to actually put sufficiently strong on the table with the U.S. because the drugs are flowing up from Mexico to the U.S., but the money and the weapons are flowing down from the U.S. to Mexico.
Along the border and at ports of entry, agencies cracking down on illicit trade include the FBI. The agency is part of 22 task forces and working groups that investigate corruption across the country, including 3 in southern Arizona alone. To find out how prevalent the problem is and the FBI's approach, we heard from Special Agent Adam Radke. Can you give us some examples of what border corruption looks like, let's say, in the state of Arizona?
Recently, we had a Border Patrol agent who we arrested last year who was providing counter surveillance to drug trafficking. We could prove on 2 separate occasions that he helped escort over 600 pounds of marijuana through southern Arizona in return for a $24,000 bribe. He also provided law enforcement sensitive information to these individuals and provided tools and techniques that the Mexican drug trafficking organization could use to further their criminal enterprise. We arrested him, and he ended up getting 7.5 years in prison.
So how does the FBI come across a case like that one?
Help from citizens. We need people who are the eyes and ears out there who live near the border all the time to, if they see something, say something. I know it's kind of a DHS, NYPD saying, but it's true, and it can translate to anywhere.
On the FBI website, it really suggests that this is a matter of national security. I mean, this is serious.
And that's why I think it's important. That's why I like my job. That's why I joined the FBI, was to put bad guys in jail, and I think this is the ultimate crime. Before I came here, I worked national security for 5 years, where I worked a lot of espionage cases. And I see a lot of similarities between espionage cases and corruption cases, because we're seeing criminal enterprises, at least in Mexico, start trying to recruit public officials, just like intelligence officers from threat countries recruit people to spy for the United States. Well, now we have criminal enterprises recruiting public officials to commit bribery or commit corruption to let things into the United States as well.
What have been some of the dollar amounts these guys can receive should they end up working with a criminal enterprise?
Thousands of dollars, it varies. Depends if someone's working at a port of entry and they're crossing God knows what across the border, they could ask for the moon, they could ask for $50,000. Or if someone, like the case of the Border Patrol agent that we arrested last year, it was worked out to be like $40 a pound of marijuana. So it depends on what they negotiate with, their co-conspirators in the investigation.
And if that border agent or officer is caught and convicted, it carries a hefty fine?
A fine, hopefully prison time. Again, I've been doing this for many years. I've had the gamut of sentencing. I've had guys that get 3 years probation, then I have guys that get multiple years incarceration. A lot of it is dependent on the judge and sentencing guidelines and criminal history, and ultimately it comes down to the judge and what he or she wants to sentence the person.
What are some of the things that you would like the public to consider if they're watching this interview, they live in a border community, and they have concerns about what's happening?
Again, go back to if you see something, say something. It's great to be hypervigilant, but also use common sense with what you're seeing. But if you're crossing through a port of entry and you notice that someone goes through without handing over papers, or just gets waved through, or if someone goes through a car and the car has multiple passengers in it, and you see them get, they don't have the Sentry Pass, and they cross through quickly and everything. Well, how did that car get through so fast? And I get scrutinized. Well, there's only one of me in the car. I know it's tough examples. The coworker might be even more important. If you see somebody, and again, it kind of comes back to comparing it to espionage. If you see somebody living beyond their means, or having interesting relationships with people that might not be from the United States, or they travel a lot down to the south side, down to Mexico. And if you're a coworker and you notice things like that, those are indicators and threat, indicators where we might be interested in as well.
I know you work with state, local, federal partners, but you also investigate some of those agencies. So tell me about that balance.
The best thing the FBI is doing to combat corruption started about 10 years ago when we started the Border Corruption Initiative. And that's when we started creating all of our border corruption task forces throughout the United States. Again, like I said, in Arizona we have 3. The one in Tucson, the Southern Arizona Corruption Task Force, is led by the FBI, but we have partners from DHS OIG, CBP OPR, ICE OPR, Tucson Police Department. And again, and only a phone call away, we have ATF, DEA, and Pima County. So I think the beauty of a task force, and I think why we're so successful and strong here, is you're introducing a wide variety of people with different experiences and motivations and techniques, and you're creating a cohesive unit with the same goal, is to fight corruption.
Arizona has always been a border state. Has this situation gotten worse? Is it getting better? How would you describe it?
It's very hard to quantify it. I mean, I've been doing this for over 15 years, and all I can say is work's been steady. It's been consistent. It ebbs and flows. Right now we're very busy, but this time next year we could be slow. But it's consistently busy.
Okay. Adam Radke from the FBI, thank you.
Thank you.
Once the FBI concludes its investigation, corruption cases then end up in federal court. It's there that Tucson attorney Sean Chapman has defended a handful of agents. We spoke to him about some of his experiences. In your experience, how are some of these agents or officers actually recruited?
What happens quite a bit is that the agents themselves may have grown up in the communities where they're working. For example, Border Patrol the agent may be from Nogales and have family both in Nogales, Arizona and Nogales, Sonora. And what I see happening quite frequently is that maybe some of their relatives are involved in cartel activity, and they find themselves getting involved in that way. And somebody that never thought that they would do anything like that ends up taking a couple grand to allow a load of drugs go through the I-19 checkpoint or something like that.
I mean, what is it that lures them to even consider, given that they have a decent job with wages and benefits?
If you think of maybe a young guy that's 22 years old that has a high school diploma, and all of a sudden he's making $95,000, $100,000 a year. He never thought he'd be making that much money. He's got a house in Sahuarita, and he overextends himself. You know, he can't pay his car payment, his mortgage payment, because he doesn't know how to handle his finances. And then maybe somebody you went to high school with in Douglas or Nogales says, "Hey, I know how you can pay these bills off real quickly," and that's frequently how it starts. The other way it'll start is just any agent that's in trouble financially that lives in one of these small communities, people hear about it and they know about it, and the temptation's there, and they unfortunately occasionally make that error.
In your experience, does the agency actually prepare these men and women for the potential of being asked to do something?
I think they do, but I think that there's a fundamental issue that I see is that agents are allowed to work in the communities along the border that they grew up in, which is a huge temptation, as I discussed. In addition, I think that they're much better now than they were 10 years ago. The Border Patrol 10 years ago had a huge hiring spree, and they hired a lot of people without really fully vetting the candidates, and as a result, there was kind of a rash of agents that had corruption issues and had to be dealt with. But I don't think it's like that anymore.
We live in polarizing times when it comes to immigration or law enforcement. How easy is it to mount a defense in a case like this one?
There's a couple things that happens anytime a federal agent or any police officer gets charged with a crime. The first thing is you have to think about the jury that's being selected, because in today's society there's such strong feelings about the immigration laws and how we treat people along the border. And so the community's really divided. There are a lot of people that think that if you're an agent, you can do no wrong, and you should be given a medal just for being a law enforcement officer. And there are other people that want to demonize you because you're in law enforcement. So it makes it really difficult to find a fair jury in that type of case.
If someone is in federal law enforcement and charged and possibly convicted, how easy is it to recover from that?
Oh, it's not. I mean, it's a stigma that carries with these people for the rest of their lives. And it's also a stigma for people that have been falsely accused. I'm currently representing an agent that in a federal case, and I'm not going to get into detail, but in my opinion is absolutely 100% innocent. And I believe that even if he's found not guilty eventually, and I think he will, he's always going to carry the stigma of having been accused of criminal behavior. It's never going to leave him.
Okay, Sean Chapman, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all for now. Thanks for joining us. To let us know what you think, visit us on social media or send an email to Arizona360@azpm.org. We'll see you next week.